Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's on the Pile. I'm Nathan Besner, and joining me is Shane Lee
What's up?
and Jenner.
Baseball.
Yes, indeed. It's baseball night here at What's on the Pile, starting with For Love of the Game, starring Kevin Costner and directed by Sam Raimi. This one is about an end-of-his-career pitcher and the woman he may love more than the game itself. Following that is Ron Shelton's classic, also starring Kevin Costner, Bull Durham, the story of a late in his career catcher, his perfect match in the philosophical Susan Sarandon, and his frustration with young upstart Nuke LaLoosh, played by Tim Robbins. But first, we're going to do For Love of the Game. This was on my pile, and it was the only Sam Raimi movie that I hadn't seen, just the only one. And I noticed a bit of his signature style. It's in there, but aside from that, this is probably the furthest departure from his wheelhouse in his entire catalog.
Yeah, it was on my pile too. And I know we all love Sam Raimi here, but I feel like we made a horrible mistake in choosing this movie. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that.
I'd say we made a halfway horrible mistake in this. The baseball in this movie I found absolutely riveting.
It was good. It was really well shot. It was good. It was.
There just wasn't enough of it.
Well, I mean that's the. I mean, good lord, the score is something like the third or fourth or maybe fifth, if you count TV work, last work of Basil Polidoris, for pity's sake, the guy who did the scores for Conan the Barbarian and Paul Verhoeven's Flesh and Blood and Starship Troopers and The Hunt for Red October and RoboCop. But I mean, it has a very sweeping sort of epic quality, and I mean, we've seen movies before, so we know how this is going to go. But at the same time, I thought that the baseball was absolutely enthralling. It is the romance plot. I wish I could call it a subplot. I wish I could call it a subplot, but it's not. It's half of the damn movie, if not more.
That may be the single worst pairing of characters I have ever seen in a film.
It's about the sappiest sack of suds I think I've ever seen. It makes most Hallmark romances look non-basic.
Yeah, I mean, every baseball cliche, every romance cliche, every sports romance cliche, they're all in there in spades. And I thought Kelly Preston was terrible in this
Kelly
movie.
Preston was she had a couple of moments where she wasn't saying anything. I occasionally say the same thing about Keanu Reeves and Bram Stoker's Dracula. There are a couple of moments where they're not saying anything that they actually perform rather well. Actually, Arnold Schwarzenegger in Batman and Robin, I can say that as well. When they're not saying anything, they're doing some really good work here and there. But Preston is just so off in this picture. And I think it's something like the last or near the last time that she too appeared above the title of a movie. But by all accounts, aside from the Scientology thing, she was a very nice woman at the same time. Never a particularly good actress, and this is it is exceedingly odd. And this was what struck me as I was watching the movies. Copious 137-minute runtime.
It is
that was shocking.
Yeah.
The second longest film that Sam Raimi, or tied for the second longest movie that Sam Raimi has ever directed. The longest, of course, being 139 minutes, Spider-Man 3. And the other tie for second longest, the editor's cut of Spider-Man 3. 2 minutes longer than the extended version of Spider-Man 2.
I did the math on this one. Yeah, definitely. Sam Raimi does not work over 2 hours, I think. I think that he is a snappy director who gets in and gets out.
It worked in Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2.
How long was Spider-Man 2? That was his masterpiece.
Well, the theatrical version was 2 hours and 7 minutes. The extended version was 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2 minutes shorter than this one. But there was a lot of content in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
And what we have here, like I say, the thing that struck me most of all, and just reading up on the background, my impression was emphasized is not so much that the movie itself is terribly odd. The fact that the movie exists in the form and from the sources that it exists is exceedingly odd. It's a baseball movie with a score by Basil Polidoris, directed by Sam Raimi, based on a posthumously discovered and published novel by Michael Shara, who wrote The Killer Angels, which was the basis of freaking Gettysburg. It is profoundly peculiar that this film should exist at all.
Who is this movie for? Who was asking for this movie?
Kevin Costner was asking for this movie.
That makes sense.
As I understand it, provided that he could get it in at a PG-13 rating. He had final cut on the film. They ended up the studio ended up
almost
giving him, the studio ended up giving him grief for something like 10 seconds of dialogue that apparently included a second or possibly third F-bomb. And he apparently really got cheesed about that. But aside from that, he had given up his then $20 million paycheck for a back end on the picture, which came up a little bit short. It made something like $46 million on a $50 million some odd budget.
This is also the movie that had the famous full frontal nudity of Kevin Costner, which he wanted in the movie, and the studio executives cut for him because audiences were laughing at it.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to see the progress of his chest pelt going from Bull Durham to this. I actually thought we were going to talk about this one second.
No, I wanted to get this out of the way.
Okay. I actually thought Costner's performance as a ball player actually showed a lot of growth as an actor in comparison to Bull Durham. I actually thought it was a rather good performance. Some of the there are some interesting comparisons between this and Bull Durham, like the way pitchers always talk to themselves on the mound. I don't know if that's an actual thing, but he was very believable as a end-of-life, exhausted pitcher. I believed the pitches. I believed the baseball every second that it was on screen. There could be a fan edit of this movie that runs something like 94 minutes that would be a legitimately great baseball picture. Unfortunately,
for the game.
Well, I mean, I thought it was cool the way that they portrayed his inner monologue, where he would shut down the crowd noise, all that kind of stuff. I thought that was actually cooler than the way they did it in Bull Durham.
I actually really like the phrase "quiet the mechanism," which is the thing that he keeps saying to himself.
And then he can't at the end, and that was pretty neat.
It's like, okay, we're doing this? Very well, then we are doing this. Now, like I say, he did not fail to convince as a ball player. He failed to convince as someone who was dating Kelly Preston.
Yeah, they were a terrible combination.
They were a terrible combination.
Like, that relationship should not have happened. Ever. Like, they were just awful together, and I don't understand how they could be written to be so bad for each other and the writers not see it. I don't get it.
I mean,
it's really bad.
The fact that, like, they don't see each other for like 5-6 months at a time. Why do they even care? Like I was shocked when she said, "Oh, I haven't seen you in 5 months." I didn't realize it had been that long. I thought he was out of town for like a week. And I'm like, okay, so why is this even still happening? What is the point of this?
I mean, good Lord, the exchange. When will you call again? When I don't feel like killing you. Jesus.
Yeah,
that was rough.
That was rough. It was borderline abusive, this relationship to each other.
Kind of bi-directional mental abuse. It's two people who are just resolutely and profoundly not on the same wavelength, and I'm amazed that it was actually, made and completed and released
with a
137-minute runtime. This is a movie that could have stood more studio interference. Like, somebody looks at it as like, Okay, the baseball's great. What do you think about the romance? Can we cut the entire content of the romance to like 15 minutes? I bet we can. No, this movie is one great radical fan edit away from being a legitimately great sports movie. As it is,
I don't know about that.
As it is, it's a peculiar historical curiosity.
I mean, he made this right after A Simple Plan, right? Which is an amazing movie.
Yeah.
My theory is like after A Simple Plan, after the misery and the cold, he's like, what can I do that's the complete opposite of that? Ooh, baseball. Let's just do that. And I guess I read the Wikipedia on why he did this movie, and he basically said because baseball. And
It's like that's an interesting take. I get the feeling that it was him proving to the suits that he could make a studio movie, and not
Raimi it up too much.
Not Raimi it up too much. It's not
which is not a bad thing.
Which is what probably gave the studio suits the confidence that he could deliver a studio Spider-Man movie. I think this was probably him paying his studio dues in order to get Spider-Man.
I mean, we got J.K. Simmons out of this movie. That's probably where he got his J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
So there's that. As soon as I saw J.K. Simmons' name in the credits, I'm like, he's the coach.
Yeah.
So, have you guys ever seen that movie Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story?
Yes.
That is actually on my pile, believe it or not. I'm deeply embarrassed about it because I kind of love Jake Kasdan.
Yeah,
but
this doesn't spoil anything, but the beginning of the movie is Dewey Cox, he's old, he's about to go on stage, and he's sitting there thinking, and then Tim Meadows, I think, says, Dewey Cox never goes on stage before he thinks about his entire life first. And then the entire movie plays out in a flashback. That is the exact same thing that happens in this movie. Billy Chapel can't throw a pitch before he thinks about his entire life first. Exact same structure.
And and another weird carryover that has to be from the posthumous novel, lacking a pre-posthumous editor. Everybody keeps referring to each other by their names gratuitously.
Yeah, their full names. They even pointed out Kelly Preston.
To the point where they even lampshade it. And you know how much I like lampshading, but Jesus.
Yeah. This movie is 2 hours and 17 minutes long.
And it's
2 hours and 17 minutes.
45.
Go ahead.
45 minutes into the movie, I'm thinking, what is this movie about? And I realized we're in the second inning, and then it dawned on me, this game is going to be the entire movie, and there have been like 3 flashbacks so far. These flashbacks are also going to be the entire movie. I have an hour and a half left. God damn it. And,
yeah.
I mean, I kind of settled in for it, but still, I was like, why was this movie made? Who thought this was a good idea?
And in the meantime, you get scene after scene after scene of Kevin Costner as Billy Chapel, a.k.a. Chappie, a.k.a. Billy, a.k.a. Chapel, constantly referring to Kelly Preston as Jane, like he keeps having to remind himself that that's her what her fucking name is because she's such a vacuum at the center of the picture. And it's not even like Julieta Messina and Juliet of the Spirits, where she's the vacuum at the center of the picture, or the cipher at the center of the picture, that is nevertheless holding everything together, and without which it would fly apart at the seams. It's like that, again, to make a random reference to Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's like that fan edit that I have of Bram Stoker's Dracula, where they just removed the romance subplot, and it was a subplot there completely, and the movie still held together. You could just remove 9/10 of Kelly Preston's screen time, and the movie would not suffer. It would improve. It would improve.
You could even end the movie at him finishing his career and getting all the cheers and whatnot, and just end it right there. Not even have him go to the airport.
Oh, hell, you could even have it end a scene later as he's in his hotel room. Or 2 scenes later as he's in his hotel room. He's put John C. Reilly. Lovely little turn by John C. Reilly, by the way.
He's so good, though.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so good. He's good as a comic actor. He's good as a legitimate actor. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
But you could actually go to Costner. I was thinking you could go to Costner sitting on his bed in long shot, just putting his head in his hand and lightly sobbing, and fade to black, and that would be a legitimately poignant ending to this picture.
Yeah.
You could have removed Kelly Preston from it completely, and that's just him and having a moment with his career.
Then it'd be a short film.
Yeah, but then the way it ends, he gives her that speech like, "I never gave you my all, but I'm going to now," or whatever. That's because the thing he was giving his all to is gone now. He doesn't have anything left. Of course he's going to go back to it. That's supposed to be a character growth moment. No, he's baseball's done. He has nothing left.
Yeah, and she's not a partner. She's not a companion. She's not a girlfriend. She's not even really a girlfriend. She's a hobby.
Yeah, she's the consolation prize now. And the speech he gives her is the exact same "You Complete Me" speech from the end of Jerry Maguire, also starring Kelly Preston. But it's like the exact same thing, which came out like 2 years earlier. So there's like nothing in this movie that's original or interesting. It's just.
Well, no, I will absolutely disagree. I will stand on the baseball is riveting.
It is.
The baseball is beautifully executed. It actually manages to build suspense. It manages to it is compelling. I am not a big sports guy. You guys know this. I am not a big sports guy, but the baseball is absolutely compelling. It is absolutely Raimi in his element, albeit not Raimiing it up too much.
I was shocked that he didn't do a first person perspective from the ball.
To the ball.
I was too.
You know, there was a little bit earlier in the movie. There was a flashback to when he was facing one of his old teammates. Where there's a flashback to where the teammate changes teams or something. I thought that's what the movie was going to be. Not that, but just that every batter or whatever, every inning, there would be like a different anecdote from his life, which would have been, I think, a better movie.
That would have been more
interesting.
Instead,
it was 90% Kelly Preston. In fact, after the first Kelly Preston flashback, I wrote in my notes, well, that was a little bit long. That meet cute and the thing, like, okay, so now can we get back to the other stuff? I didn't realize at the time that was going to be the rest of the movie.
And I find it amusing that her first appearance, when she's meeting him in the park, is basically the same kind of basic bitch letdown that she ended up doing to Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire as well, if I recall even vaguely correctly.
And she was much better in that.
She was much better in that as a nasty person.
I think her worst moment in the entire film for me was probably the "Is this America? Is this America?" that whole speech when she's going crazy because Kevin Costner has a sawed up hand.
Surprise Daniel Day Kim as the
Yep.
doctor.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
That's
what's his
really?
Ted Beneke from Breaking Bad as her random boyfriend as Ian at the art show or whatever.
Oh yeah.
and of course Ted Raimi in the Bruce Campbell role as the officious major domo at the door.
I didn't see the Oldsmobile and I didn't see Bruce Campbell, so it's not fully a Raimi movie for me.
Wait, was there Bruce Campbell? I mean, I saw Ted Raimi.
Yeah, there's no Bruce Campbell.
Okay,
I do not believe there was Bruce Campbell as
he would have been great as a baseball player.
Yeah.
No, he should have been the Yankees coach.
If he was, I don't know how old he was at the time. He should have been like the cleanup hitter that Costner was afraid to face. The one guy who he came up twice. We never got any background on why they hate each other so much.
Yeah, I have to allow that Campbell as one of the hitters probably would have taken me right out of the movie, much as I would have given me something to cling to. But no, like I say, you don't need the cute stuff in the baseball. You need the cute stuff somewhere else in the movie.
What was Kelly Preston's character supposed to be? Because on the one hand, she was kind of like the manic, erratic pixie girl type, just in mannerisms.
At a very low simmer at best.
Yeah, but it's still the kind of erratic, a little bit of lying and whatnot. And then she's suddenly also a spot-on journalist, I guess, and she's a mom, and that's it for her backstory, as far as I remember.
Yeah, like she's writing stuff for Elle. She's going to a gallery opening. She's editing something in London.
You never really get a lot of her. She is a background element to Kevin Costner's story.
I mean that's the horrible thing. I think this was trying simultaneously to be a chick flick and a sports movie.
That's
not good. The two do not work. The two do not gel. Ne'er the twain shall meet in this case.
I would argue that Tin Cup pulled that off successfully. It's been a while since I've seen that. But
Bull Durham pulled it off successfully.
Yeah.
No, I still need to see Tin Cup. I haven't actually seen that.
It's pretty good.
Oh no, so I'm given to understand. This is definitely the Costner sports movies are better when they're funny.
Yeah.
This was trying too hard to be a very serious drama, and it just doesn't work that way.
Costner's kind of takes himself very seriously, so far as I know. He's very serious about his roles, and he's like a consummate artist, and he seems hard to work with. And all I can think of is stories from The Postman when that movie came out. That it just awful film.
I was about to say, I learned from the Wikipedia that he was originally going to be in Air Force One, but he decided to hand it over to, or he ended up asking Harrison Ford to do it so he could concentrate on The Postman.
Oh,
I have still not seen The Postman. I read the original novel ages and ages ago, and I don't know. Apparently, Jane actually really likes The Postman. I think she's actually been. I think it was Jane. Somebody I know has been trying to get me to watch The Postman.
I won't.
I'll probably get to it at some point, but it might be on my own time.
Yeah, I don't. I've never seen it, but I don't really think we need to do an episode on it.
No, absolutely not. I refuse to watch it again.
I mean, I've seen Waterworld.
I'm never watching that fucking movie again. Although I freely allow in Waterworld, I was the only person in the theater who got the joke about what the D's was and who Captain Joe was before it sank.
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I saw it when it first came out.
The Raiders were hanging out on the Exxon Valdez. Captain Joseph Hazelwood, very big in the news at the time.
Okay.
So I was laughing my ass off in the theater. People were, looking around at me. I was like, "Oh, tell me you get that." They didn't get that.
Oh.
Yeah. No, that was a terrible fucking movie.
Yeah, that thing was doomed from the start.
This was just
boring.
A largely professional piece of work that just serves no discernible function except to convince studios that Sam Raimi can tamp it the fuck down.
Even if it was the same material, same ratio of baseball to romance, if it were like an hour 45, it would go down much easier. The length of this movie is like unconscionable.
Yeah, no, this is what I'm saying here. Is somewhere in the ether, somewhere in an alternate universe, there's a 94-minute cut of this movie that's really good. I swear to God.
I don't know. I'd have to see it, and I don't think anybody is going to take their time out to fix For Love of the Game.
When he was throwing the last pitch, I think there were still 20 minutes left in the movie because I was watching the clock.
Yeah.
No, I was like, please no flashback during the last pitch. Please no flashback. I was like, that's going to be like a 20-minute flashback, and then the pitch will fly. But no, it was no flashback. But then we still had like 20 minutes of epilogue after the game.
Yeah.
Well, like 14 plus credits, but still.
Yeah.
I don't. That's the most I've ever been praying for credits to be long.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think there's a stinger. I didn't hang around to find out.
Oh God, could you imagine? What would the stinger be? He's like, "Oh, I'm back on the team." He gets the call.
I want to read one of my notes from my notes I took. She's seeing her editor. She should keep seeing him. I liked that one a lot because that editor was a better relationship than what she had with Costner.
Made more sense.
Better match.
Yeah.
They travel in the same circles. They probably speak the same language.
They're into the same stuff.
Yeah.
This movie has taught me that these two should not be together.
Yes, I agree with that absolutely. I mean, to the point where even the movie is trying to bludgeon you into it at the end of the movie. It's like I never believed it. Believe it. I don't believe it. I still don't believe it, Kevin.
I mean, given what we know about Kevin Costner and how he was to work with at the time, I wouldn't be surprised if the two of them just couldn't stand each other during the production of this. And you can see that lack of chemistry.
Oh no, I would put
the animosity.
Yeah.
It's like I'm wondering why I'm wondering who thought Kelly Preston was a good idea in the first place. It's high place Scientologists. That's about all I can figure.
I wanted more from the background characters as well. As you said, John C. Reilly was great, and I wanted to know more about him. But his sole purpose for this movie was to pump up Billy Chapel, just to be his cheerleader, and that's it. Nothing else.
I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to spend that much time during a game just talking on the mound. There were so many just
Although the similar scene in Bull Durham was just great.
Yeah.
But of course it was also in the minors.
Yeah, you can
Anyways,
get away with more.
We'll circle back to that, of course. But I don't know. I wanted more J.K. Simmons, not because it needed more J.K. Simmons, just except insofar as we always need more J.K. Simmons.
I mean, I wanted more Brian Cox after his first scene.
Yes.
I was like, is that his only scene? I mean, it pretty much was. He
had
shows
no
up
more
later,
lines.
but yeah, he didn't have any more lines.
Yeah, he just clapped or cheered or just Brian Cox. I mean, again, putting Brian Cox's face in a camera is instant gold. It's just if you put Brian Cox in a frame, it is a good frame.
Yeah, he's great.
That's again just by definition. I think this is. If I had ran across this at the time, this would have been one of the earliest places that I had run across him. But
I wonder if he saw the script and he was like, so for half of my shooting time, I'm just going to be sitting there? Oh, okay, that's a paycheck.
Yeah. A lot of working actors in this picture.
Yeah.
A lot of working actors in this picture.
No, almost forgot about Jenna Malone. I mean, she was fine.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, she was one of the go-to Moppets at that point. This was before she had quite transitioned into, later teen stuff like Saved and that sort of thing. But
Saved was fantastic. I love that movie.
I wanted to love that movie. I kind of didn't, but it's not really its fault. It didn't. I dealt with enough of those fucks in grade school that it was a little bit close to the belt for me in a way that I didn't enjoy. Worried on a couple of raw nerves, but even so.
I think my favorite flashback in this movie was at the end when they flash back to the beginning of the movie and just reuse footage.
It's like, this is how we got to the point where we started this picture. It's like,
yeah.
We did not need a full circle on that one.
No, we did not.
Was it just me? So the first flashback, when he first meets Kelly Preston by the side of the road, the color palette's different. So it looks obviously very different. I feel like after that, they just stopped doing that. Like they forgot or they just gave up on doing that. Was it just me? It felt like every flashback after that looked normal.
Flashbacks didn't feel differentiated to me unless they did like 5 years later and you just kind of had to figure it out yourself.
Okay, I feel like the first one had this.
The first one definitely had a little bit more of an orangish grade to it, I think.
And then I guess they just abandoned that.
Who fucking cares? Move along.
They probably had a different colorist that day.
Either that or one of the studio flacks said, just saying, "Don't get fucking cute, Sam."
This needed more Raimi.
This needed more Raimi. This needed something.
I would love to see Sam Raimi do a romantic comedy. Yeah. I think if it were full Raimi, then that could be really interesting. He has an old school sensibility.
Well, I was about to say he kind of did in Crime Wave, but not in the way that we normally view romantic. No, this movie needed Ron Shelton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see Raimi do like a full-on sports movie that's just about sports and not, riddled with other garbage.
Yeah.
He halfway did. He halfway did, but he got saddled with half good sports stuff and half fucking Hallmark.
Well, does anybody have any final thoughts on For Love of the Game, a 2 hour and 17-minute film?
I'm going to stand by. It is a deeply, deeply, deeply odd thing that this movie exists in the first place. That's about the most interesting thing about the movie, is that it is so completely nondescript from such completely descript sources, albeit a very disjunctive mix of competing personalities. That said, genuinely lovely score by Basil Polidoris. The great, the much missed.
I would say if you can get a timestamp, jump in at the 8th inning and just watch that to the last pitch, then you're good. That's all you need to watch.
Or give it a good fan edit and watch it from beginning to end in its 80 to 95 minute runtime.
For me, I would just skip it altogether.
Or that works for me too.
It's so meh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam. We still love you.
We still love you, Sam.
Doctor Strange 2 is going to be awesome.
Doctor Strange 2 is going to be awesome. Welcome back.
All right, on that, why don't we go ahead and take our break? We will be right back. And we're back. Next up is the philosophical Bull Durham, written and directed by Ron Shelton, starring Kevin Costner, Susan Sarandon, and Tim Robbins. This film was not on my pile. It is actually a personal favorite of mine. I really, really love this movie. I find it eminently quotable. But you guys had not seen it, neither of you. Is that correct?
That is correct. I had been considering getting around to it for a very long time, except when I wasn't considering getting around to it. Again, it was just always on the radar, and somehow I never got to it, and that's kind of precisely what the program is for. Leaving aside, of course, that we are both all pointedly not addressing what is probably the best of Costner's baseball trilogy, which of course is Field of Dreams. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, see it. I mean, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you? But this, I am glad I finally got around to it.
I feel like I've been aware of this movie for as long as I've been alive. Although it came out during my lifetime, so it was. I think I vaguely remember when it came out. I've owned this movie for at least 15 years and never gotten around to it. I lived in Durham for 4 years and never went to a Durham Bulls game. It was actually kind of cool. Some of the landmarks of Durham are called out very briefly in this movie, which I thought was cool. I drive through Durham every time I go visit Nate. So although I don't think this movie was shot in Durham, maybe the stadium, but
the stadium definitely was.
Yeah,
I have some family that remembers it being shot.
Okay, cool. But yeah, they called out Northgate Mall, which I think is still there. I don't remember. And there's some stuff on the what do they call the wall? Where there's like ads and stuff on the back wall. There's some stuff I recognize from my time in Durham, so that was kind of cool. I do have one question though. Why is it called Bull Durham? Is that a phrase?
It's a joke based on Bull Durham's cigarettes, the United Tobacco or American Tobacco Company. Bull Durham's is a very signature mid-century brand of cigarettes that originated out of Durham.
Okay, I've always just wondered that because it's the Durham Bulls, obviously.
Yeah.
No, there's actually a joke about Bull Durham's in a story and subsequent screenplay that I wrote for Nate, which is this long monologue where a lady detective is making fun of the sex offender in her car, but it's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna we're gonna pull up to the nearest gas station. We're gonna flag the next woman down. We're gonna hit her on the head. We're gonna put her in the trunk, and then we're gonna leave her behind the dumpster with a pack of Bull Durhams. How's that sound? So, it's a strange joke, and I imagine I probably didn't tell it very well there. It's a you had to be there moment. Anyway,
okay. Well, I love this movie, and I think most of that has to do with the writing itself. I think it's an extremely well-written film, very smartly written film, with a lot of wonderful lines. For instance, from what I hear, you couldn't hit water if you fell out of a fucking boat.
That was such a great line. Good. That one did get me. No, the writing is fantastic in this. I like I say, I would like to. This is a study in contrast to some extent to For Love of the Game, in that For Love of the Game is constantly trying to convince us that these characters are characters. That they've had a life, that things have happened to them, that they have done stuff and lived a human existence. This movie, people show up and they're fully developed. Even Costner, who is gorgeous, we'll give him credit for that. He's a little wooden, but have you heard a ball player speak? It's actually rather naturalistic. But he doesn't have to prove anything. He's just is who he is from the moment that he sets foot on frame. And you can say that about Tim Robbins. You can say that about Susan Sarandon. They all feel like fully lived-in characters from the moment they set foot on screen. Nobody is trying to act.
Yeah, no, it's also I don't think that any of them were given backstories. I don't think we get a single backstory in this movie. The closest we get is that Kevin Costner went to the show. That's his biggest backstory moment.
And we get that Susan Sarandon's character has been around with other players. She's kind of advised slash, hooked up with untold number of players and is very familiar with the game. I mean, she seems to know the game better than anybody else in the movie.
And we get that the manager has a prepared speech for when he has to cut somebody loose.
And he has one single curse word that encompasses 4 different curse words in one. He just says them all in one single line. That damn motherfucking cock shit.
No, it's all of the character bits in this are so beautiful. They're beautifully observed. They have nothing to prove. Like I say, the slight woodenness of Costner's delivery, I will freely allow he was a much more well-rounded actor by the time that he made it to For Love of the Game, but he's playing a much more well-rounded character in this one. You feel the freight of everything that's led up to that point, whether or not anybody ever actually filled in the backstory for him. It's there. It's presumed. You don't need to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that again goes to the writing, Ron Shelton's writing. Did he write and direct all his movies? I feel like he did.
I believe he wrote a few movies before he started directing. No, but he was definitely one of the better sports directors. I occasionally, in my mind, I get my wires crossed with him and Ron Underwood, the very underappreciated director of Tremors, especially since they were both very active around the time. But around the time that the Nick Nolte picture Blue Chips, which I believe may have been Shelton's last directorial effort to date. Some review that I ran across referred to him as cinema's greatest jock. And apparently he actually was in the minors himself for a bit. Let me see. I wrote the screenplay for Bad Boys too, so yeah. I mean, okay. It was Shelton who did Hollywood Homicide. That's one that I always get cross. And he did Dark Blue.
I like Dark Blue.
Oh yeah, no, that was great.
Yeah. Kurt Russell.
Yeah, that was great.
Hollywood Homicide, not so much.
No. Hollywood Homicide had an absolutely beautiful performance by Harrison Ford that was not well served by the material surrounding it.
Yeah, that was a terrible movie.
That was a terrible movie with a really fantastic performance by Harrison Ford at the center of it. And then I think he basically retired for like 5 years.
Bull Durham is one of Tim Robbins' first films. I think it's the one that really broke out his career.
Yeah, no, the only thing I think I noticed him in before this was Howard the Duck.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, as a scientist. The only image I had in my head of this movie was Tim Robbins tied to a bed. I think I'd seen that we used to have Showtime when I was growing up, and I think I saw a commercial for Bull Durham, and it had that scene, and that just kind of stuck in my head. I'm like, oh, this is like a sexy movie.
No, that was the impression that I got from the trailers as well, and I also remember a lot of stills of Tim Robbins with the garter belt.
Yeah.
A lot of athletic supporters in both of these movies this week. Lot of crotch shots. I mean that deals with that. I mean that's a thing that happens when you're watching catchers, particularly. No hate, but anyway,
just staring at their crotches. Yeah, I know the roundness of John C. Reilly's bulge by heart now.
Yeah, no, that was really all up in there. For Love of the Game, but no, even so, it has a very agreeable, slightly shaggy, doggish quality to it. But at the same time, as a roundabout in the case of Tim Robbins and reverse in the case of Kevin Costner, coming of age story. I think that's possibly sort of the closest genre that I can put this in other than it's a sports picture,
Mm.
or it's a romantic comedy. I'm not even sure I would even particularly characterize it as a romantic comedy as a matter of design. That's just kind of an incidental, but again, very effective element of the movie. And I have to appreciate the really, really solid chemistry that Sarandon has with both of her lead actors in this case. I mean, good Lord, this was what 13 years after the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and she was starting to reach getting close to Hollywood's idea of la nage certaine. As goes the saying, but dear God, she's sexy in this movie.
Yes, she is.
I always loved Susan Sarandon. Maybe not so much with some of her latter-day political choices, but we'll leave that aside for the moment. This led into a major, I think, kind of resurgence for her career as well. She did, again, another sort of May-December thing with James Spader called White Palace that I've never seen. But, then she did Lorenzo's Oil, where she was a fucking force of nature. Susan Sarandon and George the Road Warrior Miller, together again for the first time. That is one of the that movie in particular, I think, is one of the most underrated or at least underappreciated movies of the '90s.
She also got Tim Robbins out of it. They were
forever.
they
broke up recently, right?
Yeah, they were a thing for a bit.
Yeah, they were like a Hollywood power couple and doing all sorts of
and so awkward
stuff.
at Oscars after Oscars after Oscars during that period. You guys were both pretty young around that time, so maybe you don't remember. I remember. It was just going up there and making awkward pronouncement after awkward pronouncement. But okay, I mean, okay. Be that as it may, they stuck for a while. Good for them.
Yeah. I mean, I love Tim Robbins as a dope. He does it perfectly here. He does it perfectly in Hudsucker Proxy. He tends to play, not super dark roles, but he tends to be more of a serious actor. So it was fun seeing him here doing the whole kind of dopey idiot thing. He does really well. Just doesn't do all that often anymore.
Yeah, well, I hate to say he's grown out of it, but it would be weird if he were doing that at this point in his career, except maybe in like a goofy dad role or something like that. And frankly, at this point, the guy's got Oscar nominations for directing. It's pretty much beneath him by now.
What was his last project?
I don't know. That's whatever it was. I don't think it landed.
I feel like I saw him in like a dad role or something, or I don't know.
Yeah,
that's awkward.
Could look it up.
Yeah, no, there's always Wikipedia for this. I mean, he's staying busy. I mean, all of these people are staying busy, and good for them. I like Kevin Costner as a character actor and a supporting actor these days, kind of a lot more than I like him as a lead. But even then, he's still pretty agreeable a lot of the time.
I totally forgot he was on Castle Rock.
That's right. I still need to see the second season of that.
It's very good. Second season is great. I didn't like the first season as much, but I love the second season.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, still very much a good, a solid go-to actor. Oh, he was in Marjorie Prime. That was a good movie. That was one that nobody frickin' saw, but I liked it.
I think one of my favorite moments in Bull Durham is the "I Believe" speech.
Yes, that was another one that really kind of hooked me in as well.
Yeah. I remember showing this to Jess, and when we were first started dating, I showed this to her. It was one of the first movies I showed her because I always thought it was such a romantic film, but in a very cool way. And I think that scene kind of encapsulates that.
One of my favorite moments is when Kevin Costner's teaching Nuke how to speak in cliches for interviews.
Yeah, that was that was spot on. Then
at the end when Tim Robbins spouts them all in a row, and it sounds like it's still the same stuff actual athletes say, every day.
Well,
after a game.
I wasn't throwing shade. I was simply observing the phenomenon earlier when I mentioned, have you seen what happens when they put a ball player behind a microphone?
Yeah.
I mean, some of them have a talent for it. Most of them go to that. I guess it's like a meme going around, like, well, they sportsed really hard, and we sportsed really hard, but I guess they sportsed harder than we did, and we'll just have to sports harder next time. It's not easy to sports all the time, but we sports as hard as we can every time. We leave all the sports on the field, something like that.
Were either of you guys baseball fans growing up?
Yes.
I was. That's actually a funny story that I was hoping we would get to on this episode as well. I was actually very big into baseball and baseball cards from, well, mostly during the time that I lived in Massachusetts, which was from 1984 to 1986. Shout out to the 1984 Detroit Tigers, which came out of nowhere, and maybe another one of those incidental instances of the universe giving me something that I wanted because I was rooting for them that year. Because, weirdly enough, because I was really big into cats, and so I was rooting for the Detroit Tigers, and then they come out of nowhere and they end up winning the World Series, as is referenced in For Love of the Game. But the common consensus is that I blew so much sports-related karmic mojo on that as a child, in the spirit of unintended consequences, that I have since, subsequently, and probably for all time, become what is known in old Vegas mythology as a cooler. In that any time that I take a stance on games of chance or sporting contests, I will. Whoever I'm rooting for will lose, basically. This last election was terrifying, by the way. I'll just leave that there.
No, I grew up with baseball as well. I was in Little League. I collected baseball cards as well. Loved the Topps line. Loved their gum even, and which would break your teeth. And
I remember.
And one of my cousins, Cal Kuntz, was a major league player for a time. I believe he played for the Mets. So we have a little bit of it in our blood. But it's I was very into baseball up until my 20s, I would say, and then I just kind of faded out. And
I was about to say I got out of it around age 12 or 13. There was a period where kids who got good grades in my school got free nosebleed tickets to the Braves. So I saw the Braves, and they never won any time that I watched them. And then they stopped doing that, and I stopped paying attention, and they won a World Series.
Nice. Yeah, this movie made me miss baseball. I've also fallen out of baseball, but I grew up playing it, loving it, and just how lovingly this movie portrays baseball. I mean, it starts with Susan Sarandon just monologuing about basically establishing baseball as like this great myth, this great American thing, and I thought it did a really good job of capturing this. Whereas in For Love of the Game, I feel like they just crammed all these cliches down your throat to make it seem like, oh, this is all important, this matters. Whereas here, you kind of really feel like it.
It actually only just occurred to me that whole "isn't this America" line was actually supposed to be funny. That hadn't occurred to me until just now.
Oh, well, they missed that.
Yeah, no, that joke did not land.
No.
No, it is 22 years later, and I had to think about that one to get it. Anyway.
Also, real quick sidebar. I've been racking my brains as to what to get my cousins for Christmas. They're not cousins, nephews. They're 5 and 3, and their birthdays are in November and September. So I've already just bought them toys, and their parents don't want them to have video games in the house because whenever I bring my Xbox over, they go berserk. Like they're just not used to that kind of stimulation. Because of this movie, I think today I was just walking around like Target and stuff, and I realized, hey, T-ball.
Yeah.
They can play T-ball, and so I bought them all this T-ball stuff. And
nice.
It'll be perfect because my brother and I both grew up playing. So I did text my brother, asked him if they had T-ball stuff. He's like, oh shit, they're the right age for T-ball. It didn't even occur to me.
Well, perfect.
So I'm like, thank you, Bull Durham.
Thank you, Bull Durham.
That makes me. I need a T-ball set. I need to get some of that. I think Declan and Amelia are definitely old enough at this point.
Yeah, I think it's like I looked it up to make sure. It's like 4 to 7 is like when you should be starting that stuff, or when you can be starting that stuff.
Okay.
And it's a film that really makes you believe in baseball as, the American pastime. It's a film that makes you nostalgic for that period when you were into baseball, because we all had that, even if we don't have it anymore. Because I don't want otherwise perfectly worthwhile franchises to go down just because I've taken an interest in their affairs. I ain't kidding. My mom is a Red Sox fan. Anytime that my mom believes now. It took a few years, but she believes. Anytime the Sox are even approaching the playoffs, she makes sure that all of my relatives go into complete sporting media news blackout with me. They don't talk about me until the damn series. They don't talk with me until the series is over.
That's respect. That's like respecting the streak. I love I love in this movie how they really show the superstitious nature of baseball players. That
and that's a real thing. Yeah, like
the
chicken bone thing, the chicken bone necklace or something.
In varying degrees, they aren't as. I am given to understand that baseball players are not as superstitious as hockey players. Of course, I'm given to understand that no one is as superstitious as hockey players. There are people who are out there right now trying to literally summon the devil who are not as superstitious as hockey players. But no, baseball players, I am given to understand, definitely have that don't fuck with it streak to it.
Something else that For Love of the Game fucks up. You're not supposed to talk to your pitcher during a no-hitter. That's a big no-no, superstition-wise. And he's talking to him constantly in that game. Anyways, back to
it's John C. Reilly, so it's agreeable, but I didn't know that was a myth, but I can perfectly well see that as being something that got fucked up in there.
They alluded to that with Kevin Costner sitting way on the other side of the bench, during that's For Love of the Game, right? I'm not
yes, that was For Love of the Game.
I watched them back to back.
Yeah.
But so they alluded to that, but then they had the catcher talking to the pitcher constantly, which you're not really supposed to do. I mean, there's no like rule against that. It's just something that it's just a superstition that a lot of baseball players.
It's the hex sign.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's it's a film that makes you respect the superstitions, if not necessary, or respect the ones who have the superstitions, if not necessarily the superstitions yourself. It's its own arcana. It's its own language. It's its own syntax. And Bull Durham makes you believe in that, even if you don't fully get it. For Love of the Game does not. For Love of the Game, it could have been any other sport.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that it's baseball, there's nothing that makes it baseball, if that makes the slightest bit of sense.
I wonder when Kevin Costner became the baseball guy.
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams came out before this, right?
Field of Dreams was after Bull Durham, but
after this.
I want to say it was either 90 or 91. Field of Dreams is one of the all-time great pieces of Americana. I think we can pretty solidly agree on that.
Oh yeah.
Great score. Kevin Costner really reaching that point between just being cute and actually really being able to act. The great Amy Madigan, James Earl, God damn Jones, who I quoted in my in the intro of this episode. I don't know if you noticed the delivery there, but no, Field of Dreams is an all-time classic. Bull Durham is a slightly more minor classic, but one that may be of more appeal to people who are more deeply into baseball as a thing unto its own.
For Love of the Game is never going to be a classic. It's just going to disappear into obscurity.
I don't think anyone who's listening to this is even going to know what the movie is. Directed a baseball movie?
For Love of the Game, we have to file as an historical curiosity at this point.
Another scene I loved from the film was Nobody Gets Woolly.
Oh,
Women get weary. Nobody gets woolly. I love that so much.
How can you screw up Try a Little Tenderness?
Yeah, I know. It's very easy to hear the words.
Yeah. No, I mean, amongst other things, Bull Durham has a very perfectly measured soundtrack as well. doesn't have the scoring that For Love of the Game does, but it does have a better and better used soundtrack. I am going to hunt down a full version of 60 Minute Man because I need that in my goddamn rotation.
That's a good one.
That song was so balla, and that's not a word I throw around often or lightly.
Now, Shane, you were saying you liked the kind of baseball player in his head scenes in For Love of the Game better than Bull Durham. I would disagree. I liked him better in Bull Durham myself.
I think I guess they were a little flashier in For Love of the Game, and there were fewer of them, I guess. So whenever it happened, it was really cool. I mean, I like the ones in Bull Durham just fine as well.
I do like the constant refrains of meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both self-directed on the part of Crash Davis as well as directed toward Nuke LaLoosh. But also, come on, give me that weak-ass shit.
Yeah.
Give me that weak-ass shit.
Give me that.
That's like a mantra right there.
Yeah.
Again, going into sort of the internal and external arcana of baseball as a ritualized activity. Yeah, I mean, to the point where the movie almost feels a little flat after everybody's kind of gone their separate ways toward the end, and the movie itself has no choice but to I don't know, basically turns into Blade Runner for like the last 10 minutes before the last 5 minutes of the movie. I mean, up to including the Vangelis-esque languid saxophone and rain all the time everywhere. It's an odd tonal shift. I think it absolutely works, and it does make Crash coming back to Annie kind of very satisfying in its own right, because they did have the chemistry. You'd want them to end up together for however long it lasts. And whereas you'll be amazed in For Love of the Game if Kevin Costner and Kelly Preston are not biting each other's heads off by the end of the goddamn intercontinental flight if they actually got on it together. It's like some relationships that work. Relationships that don't.
Yeah, like Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon's chemistry was so good that, if you didn't know, I would never have guessed that she ended up with Tim Robbins for life, basically. I would have assumed that they would have, gotten together during the making of this movie.
Yeah.
That's how palpable it was when they were together.
And Annie did choose Crash over Nuke to begin with. It's just that he left because he wasn't interested, which made her so much more interested. This was a much better romantic film than For Love of the Game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I believed in their relationship and the tension, the sexual tension. It was very good. He had no chemistry with Kelly Preston, and she was so awful. I know I keep going back to it, but I just really did not like that movie.
Yeah, we've all been going back to it constantly.
I mean, here's the thing: is there's a lot of study and contrast between the two pictures, which was why I hate to say it, I was kind of hoping that we would get to that we would see them chronologically in this case.
Yeah.
For the sort of the ways that Costner improved as an actor. B, the ways that Costner deteriorated as a creative, or at least got way, way, way further up his own backside as a creative.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that Bull Durham made more in $1988 than For Love of the Game made in $1999.
Well,
the fact that one movie is an agreeable, slightly shaggy doggy, 108 minutes, and the other movie is a mostly, except when actual baseball is being played, glacial 137 minutes, of which you could delete an hour and no one would complain.
Yeah. Now, there is a little bit of casual 80s homophobia in the film.
There's actually a bit of casual 90s transphobia in For Love of the Game, which I noticed in one particular line in the gallery.
Oh,
You
yeah.
gotta figure that the sporting types in the '80s would not have been anything resembling woke.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that does kind of need to be filtered through. Well, I mean, call a duck a duck. Realistically, a lot of the a lot of the sports types are probably still homophobic as fuck. They just don't advertise it quite so much. But
Right.
leaving that aside for the moment, yeah, there is a certain measure of, if not forgivability, then understandability for the time context.
Yeah.
Like Philip Marlowe calling somebody a pansy back in the '40s. Yeah. It is what it is, at the risk of copping out there.
Well, I would say beyond, other than those particular moments, the movie's aged incredibly well.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
If that was what you were leading
Well,
into, yes, I
right.
agree. Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I was leading into.
I do think, given the time period, if Susan Sarandon hadn't been a woman, they would have made that person a coach, like someone who knows that much about the players and has that much insight into the game.
Hmm.
I mean, if that movie came out today, they would probably try and make her into a coach.
Well, I mean, she
don't know.
basically was a de facto coach anyway. She was just a volunteer coach as
Hmm.
much as anything else.
Well,
But at the same time, they did kind of, going back to something a friend of mine once said to me, observing a bunch of guys losing their shit over sports. There's no one as gay as straight guys. Going back to the scene where everybody's clustering on the mound, they are going through all of the stuff that they have to sort out, like figuring out what the hell to get that one guy for his wedding. There's a very sort of hennish drama to it all, that I think it may have been kind of subtly pushing back against the sort of casual sexism, casual misogyny that we assume would have been rampant in a quote-unquote boys club kind of environment.
and Annie did at one point refer to their masculinity as latent homosexuality. So
Yeah.
that was pretty fun. That was very funny. That was
So we'll call it woke by '88 standards.
right. There you go. There you go. Well, does anybody have any final thoughts on Bull Durham or For the Love of the Game?
I mean, go see Bull Durham if you haven't already.
Yeah, go see Bull Durham.
Forget the other one exists.
Yeah.
Makes me want to finally see Tin Cup. Makes me want to rewatch Field of Dreams again, just to fill in the gap.
Mhm. This
and,
was
reach the pinnacle of it all.
This was also a fairly spoiler-free episode. Not for Love of the Game, but that doesn't count because it was stupid.
Well, okay, the ending of For Love of the Game is a done deal.
Yeah.
I mean, strictly speaking, both of the endings of For Love of the Game are a done deal. One of them hits, or well, I should say one of them doesn't hit. Ba-dum-bum. One of them plants the landing, but is so utterly weighed down by the other one, which doesn't land at all, that it drags the whole affair down. Bull Durham doesn't really have a plot to begin with. It's really just sort of a sequence. It's like it's this one season in this minor leagues team. It's just so beautifully and humanely observed, with characters you could tolerate or would want to hang out with or share a beer with, at the risk of another one of the floating okie dokes around. It's just a deeply, deeply agreeable time, and yes, it is sexy as fuck.
Yeah, well said. And on that note, that's going to do it for us here on What's on the Pile. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at What's on the Pile, or you can visit our website, whatsonthepile.com. Thanks for hanging out.